Henry IV, Part 2, it looks like Act 4, Scene 5 is where we left off. Yeah, it's the scene, in fact, where Harry is talking with his father after he's been caught holding the crown, wearing the crown, and his father says, and Harry says, I thought you were dead, and he says, thy wish was father to that thought. You wanted me to be dead, that's why you had that idea, etc. And I don't remember if we did this or not, but I'm going to pick up where, we did talk about this a little bit. The prince kneels and hands him the crown back. It says, pardon me, my liege, but for my tears, the moist impediments unto my speech, I had forestalled this dear and deep rebuke. Ere you with grief had spoken, I had heard the course of it so far. There is your crown. Notice, not mine, don't want it. And he that wears the crown immortally, long guard it yours. If I affect it more than as your honor and as your renown, let me no more from this obedience rise. That is, from being on my knees before you. He's essentially saying, if I don't deserve it, as much as your honor and your renown, God kill me now. That's what he means by let me not from this obedience rise. May God strike me dead, which my most inward true and duteous spirit teacheth this prostrate and exterior bending. God witness with me when I thought you were dead. You weren't seemingly breathing. Okay. Let me in my present wildness die. What's his present wildness? Hanging around with Falstaff. It's that riotous living. Okay. Or as I put it in my response to why does King Henry V reject Falstaff? His faults. You remember in his first soliloquy in Henry IV, Part 1, he says, so that my reformation glittering over my faults, okay, will so dazzle everybody. These are the faults he's talking about. Let me in my present wildness die and never live to show the incredulous world the noble change that I have purposed. Now, he's telling us again, even though he's telling his father directly, everything seemingly he has done with Falstaff and the others has been what? It's an act. It's an act. Okay? He's been false to them. Why? So that following Polonius's advice to his son Laertes in Hamlet, he can later to thine own self be true. He can later show everybody what the real Harry is. Coming to look on you, thinking you dead, and dead almost, my liege, to think you were, that is, and I nearly died thinking you were dead. I spake unto this crown as having sense. He spoke to the crown like it was a sentient thing, and thus upbraided it. Upbraided. We don't use that term very often. Or ever. What's it mean? He scolded it. The care on thee depending hath fed upon the body of my father. The care on thee depending, hanging from. The care that hangs from the crown. What is that care? The cares of state. The cares of state. Okay? Hath fed upon the body of my father. It's the crown that is doing what? Killing Henry IV. It's sucking the life out of him. In brief aside for a moment, look at pictures of almost every president we've had, especially if they've served 2 terms, from when they become president to when they leave the office. And it's not just because they're generally, quote unquote, old men. Bill Clinton was not an old man when he was elected president. Neither was Barack Obama. But they look like old men when they finish. Why? You can't get the presidential daily brief that those guys get and not have black hair turn gray or white, not have a smooth face turned lined and wrinkled, not be worried about what's coming down the pike. Okay? Therefore, thou best of gold art worst of gold. It's the best thing made of gold, but it's also the worst of gold. Why? How can gold be bad? If it's not used properly. Other, less fine and carat, that is, other, less worthy gold is more precious. Why? Preserving life and medicine potable. It can be used to buy medicine, or he might also be suggesting it can be used as medicine. The idea that you can mix gold dust in potions, apothecaries, to imbibe, and it would help you. I remember back in the early 70s, I had a grandfather who had horrible arthritis. I mean, his fingers were like this. And he used to wear this bracelet that had gold in it. Why? Because some quack told him, if you wear gold around your wrist, it will make your arthritis better. But thou, most fine, honored, most renowned, hast eat thy bearer up. The crown has consumed the king. And you could almost go right from here to the Netflix series, The Crown, because it's doing a lot of the same thing. Okay? Thus, my royal liege, accusing it, I put it on my head. To try with it, that is, to oppose it, to contest with it, to do battle with it, as with an enemy that had before my face murdered my father, the quarrel of a true inheritor. But it did infect my blood with joy. If it did infect my blood with joy, or swell my thoughts to any stain of pride, if any rebel or vain spirit of mine did with the least affection of a welcome give entertainment to the might of it, that is, if any part of me went, now I've got it, now I'm king. Let God forever keep it from my head, and make me as the poorest vassal is that doth with awe and terror kneel to it. Is that merely an oath to his father? No. He has just sworn to God. If there was the slightest part of me that wants this authority, kill me now, or make me the lowest of the low of the land. Oh, my son, God put it in thy mind to take it hence, that thou mightst win the more thy father's love, pleading so wisely in excuse of it. Way to go, Harry. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear from you. God put it in your mind to take it away. Why? So that you could give me this very speech. Because keep in mind, the king is still kind of wishing, if only Hotspur had been my son. Yeah, I know Hotspur's now dead, but come, sit by my bed. And here I think the very latest counsel that ever I shall breathe. In other words, I'm almost dead. God knows, my son, by what paths and indirect crooked ways I met this crown. Indirect, crooked. He even says, I didn't get it by the straight and narrow path. mouth. And I myself know well how troublesome it sat upon my head. In other words, you know, Harry, it wasn't really built for me. It just doesn't fit quite right. To thee it shall descend with better quiet. Why? He didn't have to fight for it.
He can buy it legally.
He comes by it legally. How do you mean legally?
He's the son of a king.
He inherits it.
He didn't usurp it.
He doesn't usurp it. So, you know, one of the whole points of Richard II is that idea we talked about a little bit, that doctrine of passive obedience. Okay? Why do you passively obey? Because God is in control. And you have this law of inheritance. It's why Bolingbroke comes back. He's been cut out of his inheritance. That's why Richard dies. He broke that unwritten law. He removed one of those chains in the great chain of being. Bolingbroke had to put the chain back. Okay? So, he says, no, you'll get the crown better. Better opinion, that is, the common opinion of the people. Better confirmation, for all the soil of the achievement goes with me into the earth. When I die, the wrong, he is saying, that comes with my having the crown dies with me. Okay? Now we can almost jump from there to, where is it? Mark Antonys' speech, his funeral oration. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with the bones. Which is just the opposite of what King Henry IV is saying. He's saying, no, the evil will go with me into the earth. Okay?
That's a Christian idea, though, that wouldn't have made sense historically with Caesar.
With Caesar, exactly. Okay? So, he goes on. It seemed in me, but as an honor snatched with boisterous hand, and I had many living to upbraid my gain of it by their assistances. Who are the many living that he had to upbraid him, who helped him by their assistances? Northumberland, Hotspur,
The rebels.
all the rebels, Mortimer, Mowbray, etc. Hastings. Everybody who's now against Henry were those who were for Henry. Okay? Which daily grew to quarrel into bloodshed, wounding supposed peace. All these bold fears thou seest with peril I have answered. That is, that's why we fought the Battle of Shrewsbury. For all my reign hath been but as a scene act, and there's Shakespeare loving that image of life as a play again. As a scene acting that argument. A scene depicting that one central thesis. Who's the rightful king? And now my death changes the mood. The mood. But it's not just the mood. It's a new act. For what in me was purchased falls upon thee in a more fairer sort. So thou the garland wearest successively, that is, by inheritance, appropriately. Yet though thou standst more sure than I could do, more sure, your right to the crown is more sure, more right, more appropriate than mine ever could be. Because bear in mind, Henry was not in line. Well, he was. Let me rephrase that. But not immediate. Who was immediate in line? Mortimer was. Okay? Thou art not firm enough, since griefs are green, and all my friends, which thou must make thy friends, have but their stings and teeth newly ta'en out. In other words, he's kind of saying, you better make my friends your friends. Why? Because if you don't, their teeth will regrow and their stings will regrow. By whose fell working I was first advanced, and by whose power I might well lodge a fear to be again displaced. Well, who are the friends he's talking about? Northumberland, etc. He's not talking about his friends now. He's talking about his new friends when? When he came back out of exile. How friendly was Northumberland to him when Richard II banished him? He didn't say, no, my lord, you can't do that. No, he didn't defend him at all. I might well lodge a fear to be again displaced, which to avoid, I cut them off. That's why Northumberland et al. Are no longer friendly, and had a purpose now to lead out many to the Holy Land. Purpose now, that is, my purpose then, how long ago was then? 8 years. It's been 8 years since Richard was deposed. He said, my purpose was to go to the Holy Land. That is, we would unite together in this holy enterprise, lest rest and lying still might make them look too near unto my state. Keep them busy. That's it. Keep them busy. But didn't work out that way. Therefore, my Harry, this is what we left off with the other day. Be it thy course to busy giddy minds with foreign quarrels. Get them involved where? Start a war. Or launch a battle. And what does he do? Henry V begins with ambassadors from France, and Henry tells the ambassadors, just wait. And it's like the very next scene, they're preparing for invasion. Okay? Why? He knows he's got to unite the people behind him. Nothing better to do that than to rouse nationalistic fervor. Get everybody rocking on your side. I mean, in one sense, this is going to sound horrible and crass, and to say it. Theresa May, Prime Minister of Great Britain, just had the greatest gift she could ever have plopped into her lap. Why? Because Putin, Russia, whichever one you want to call it, assassinated a former spy in Salisbury. Where is Salisbury? It's to Washington, Salisbury to London would be like Moline, Illinois to Washington, D.C. In other words, nowhere. It is a small podunk town. Literally, it's 5,000 people. Okay? Where this ex-Russian spy was living. Putin assassinates him. With what? A nerve gas. A very, very rare nerve gas. A nerve gas that only exists in Russia because it was created by the Soviets in the 1980s. Pretty clear if what the intelligence agencies are telling us is true, and I know, you got to put a lot of faith there, okay? If they're telling us that's true, she's just been given, because she's been having one nightmare after another as prime minister. So that now she has the populace, what? New Iron Lady, because she's now threatening Russia. We've got Nikki Haley now at the UN threatening Russia. In fact, we've given Russia essentially 2 weeks to fess up. Or we're going to start raining hell on Russia. Where? In Moscow? No. In Syria. In Syria. if you're unaware of it, the United States has already killed several hundred Russian soldiers in Syria, but they weren't wearing and fighting under the Russian uniform. They were mercenaries. Still doesn't make old Vlad the Impaler all that happy, however, that a bunch of his guys got their, what's handed to them. Okay? That's exactly what Henry is talking about here. Unite your people how? Get them involved in something. Well, Putin's doing the same thing. This, by the way, is how major conflagrations begin. Each side's trying to, quote unquote, use a sexist term, man up. Well, it's not sexist in this day and age. So, he says, why? That action hence borne out may waste the memory of the former days. People won't remember what happened before. More would I, that is, I would tell you more, but I can't. That strength of speech is utterly denied me. How I came by the crown, oh God, forgive. And grant it may with thee in true peace live. You won it, wore it, kept it, gave it to me. Then plain and right must my possession be, which I with more than with a common pain gainst all the world will rightfully maintain. In other words, once it's mine, exactly, it's going to be like Charlton Heston, they're going to have to pry it from my cold, dead fingers in order to get this crown from me, okay? So, others come in, and we're going to skip a bit, go to... Sorry, I didn't mean to call Mistress Quickly a bitch, but, go to 5:2. Okay? We're leaving what happens between the end of 4:5 and the beginning of 5:2, because we're not told exactly when it happens. Notice, 4:5 ends with the king being borne out on his bed. Okay? He's still alive. Laud be to God. Praise be to God. Even there my life must end. There, because Warwick has mentioned Jerusalem, it hath been prophesied to me many years, I should not die but in Jerusalem, which vainly I suppose the Holy Land bear me to that chamber. He's talking about a chamber that is nicknamed Jerusalem. It's a proper place to die, etc. So they go out carrying him. And if I were filming this, I would have Henry coughing as they carry him off. 5:2 opens with Warwick and the Lord Chief Justice. How now, my lord? Whither away? How doth the king? Exceeding well. His cares are now all ended. King's doing very well, thank you. He's dead. No cares, no pain, no sorrow, no suffering. I hope not dead, he's walked the way of nature. And to our purposes, he lives no more. That is, to our ends, to what we need out of life, can't help us. I would his majesty had called me with him. The service that I truly did his life hath left me open to all injuries. In other words, I'm going to pay for it now. Why? Hal is king now. The Lord Chief Justice has kind of been what to Hal? Yeah. Kind of like the truant officer. Having to, find which whorehouse he's at, which tavern he's at, bring him to the court, etc. Okay? Warwick, indeed, I think the young king loves you not. I know he doth not, and do arm myself to welcome the condition of the time, which cannot look more hideously upon me than I have drawn it in my fantasy. In other words, he's thinking probably like, I don't know how much you keep up on the news and stuff, how much H.R. McMaster, general who is Trump's current national security advisor, is probably looking at his calendar thinking, well, in about a week or 2 weeks' time, I'm going to have a whole bunch of free days. because Trump's starting to clean house. Okay? The Lord Chief Justice is thinking, I'm going to have hell to pay. Warwick, well, here come the heavy issue of dead Harry. Oh, that the living Harry had the temper of he. The worst of these three gentlemen. Okay, the three gentlemen, Prince John of Lancaster, Prince Thomas, even though it doesn't say Prince before his name, Thomas of Clarence, and Prince Humphrey of Gloucester. These are Hal's younger brothers. They're all princes. They're all in line to the throne if they bump off elder brother. Okay? Notice Warwick, when he says, oh, that the living Harry had the temper of he, the worst of these three gentlemen. He's talking about the king. He's not talking very appropriately about the king. But bear in mind, he's speaking to somebody whose confidence is, he is sure of. And he speaks in grief, you could say. Sorry, didn't know what I was saying. Okay? Chief Justice, oh God, I fear all will be overturned. In other words, the days we used to know are going to be completely opposed. Prince John, good morrow, cousin Warwick. Good morrow, cousin. We meet like men that have forgot to speak, blah, 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 blah. And the Chief Justices, Prince Clarence says, well, you must now speak Sir John Falstaff fair, which swims against your stream of quality. You must talk nicely about Sir John Falstaff, which swims against your stream of quality? What does he mean? It's against his moral code. The Lord Chief Justice is what kind of person? John McCain likes to say this about himself. Straight shooter. I say it how it is. The difference is, this guy really is. Okay? He doesn't equivocate. He doesn't tailor his message for the audience. He just calls them how he sees them. The prince is kind of warning him. You better not call him quite how you see him, because, sweet princess, what I did, notice, past tense, what I used to say and do, I did in honor, led by the impartial conduct of my soul, and never shall you see that I will beg a ragged and forestalled remission. You're not going to see me change. In other words, if I'm going to go out, he's going to go out how? With dignity and honor. Can you imagine, as an example, modern day, can you imagine General Mattis kowtowing to Trump? Can you imagine General Mattis saying something that he really didn't believe in? I can't. I know a person who had Mattis as his brigade commander, and this guy says, this guy would never say anything he doesn't believe in. And if he were called to do something that he didn't believe in, he'd say, here's my resignation. Okay? That's what the Lord Chief Justice is saying he will do. If truth and upright innocency fail me, I'll to the king, my master that is dead, and tell him who hath sent me after him. What's he mean? He means I will kill myself and explain to the king, my master, why I so closely follow him. Here comes the prince. Enter the prince as King Henry V. And the king responds to the Chief Justice. Good morrow and God save your majesty. Now, is he sucking up? No, he is speaking as he ought to speak to the king. This new and gorgeous garment, majesty, notice, that's the garment. What? That he puts on when he becomes king. And as young Queen Elizabeth discovered in 1953, when she became queen, you can't take it off. You never take it off. Not even when you're by yourself. It's, the whole investiture process means now everything you do, you go to the outhouse, you do as king/queen. Sits not so easy on me as you think. In other words, he's kind of going, I know what you're thinking. Brothers, you mix your sadness with some fear. Sadness over what? Dad's dead. Fear of me. Not fear that he will turn into a tyrant. Fear that he's not up to the job. This is the English, not the Turkish court. Turkish court, he's saying that I'm going to have you all killed. Not Amurath, and Amurath succeeds, but Harry. Yet be sad, good brothers, for by my faith it very well becomes you. Sorrow so royally in you appears that I will deeply put the fashion on and wear it in my heart. Why then be sad? But entertain no more of it, good brothers, than a joint burden laid upon us all. In other words, be sad, but don't fear me. We should all be sad. For me, by heaven, I bid you be assured, I'll be your father and your brother too. Father how? Role model. King. Okay? Let me but bear your love. I'll bear your cares. Love me. When he says I'll bear your cares, okay, very loaded Christian language. He's saying, I will be your servant king. I will bear your problems. Why? So you don't have to. Yet weep that Harry's dead, and so will I. Harry, the former king, but it's also my former self. Prince Harry is dead. King Henry V now lives. But Harry lives that shall convert these tears by number into hours of happiness. We hope no otherwise from your majesty. In other words, yeah, that's what we were thinking all along. You all look strangely on me. In other words, no, you're not being honest. And you most, he says to the Chief Justice. You are, I think, assured I love you not. What does this tell us about King Henry V? I'm going to keep calling him Hal. What does this tell us about Hal?
Very perceptive.
He is extremely astute. Okay, I mean, he knows what people think. Why? Because he made them think that about him. Exactly. I am assured, if I be measured rightly, your majesty hath no just cause to hate me. No just cause. In other words, just doing my job. No? And I got to imagine, if I were directing this, when he says no, the Lord Chief Justice kind of backs up a moment and gets a look of fear on his face, like, uh-oh, here it comes. How might a prince of my great hopes forget so great indignities you laid upon me? What? Rate, rebuke, roughly send to prison the immediate heir of England? Was this easy? May this be washed in Lethe and forgotten. Was this easy? What's he saying?
Did you do it without any kind of fire and load, or was it just kind of a joy to do?
He's really making a statement. It couldn't have been easy for you. That had to be pretty hard for you. Chief Justice, I then did use the person of your father. Use the person of your father means I acted in accordance with the will of your father. I had your father's blessing. I had your father's authority. He's also saying I acted as a father. Fathers must train sons. The image of his power lay then, when I did that stuff, his power lay then in me. And in the administration of his law, while I was busy for the commonwealth, your highness pleased to forget my place. Then you forgot who I was. I was the executor of the law. The majesty and power of law and justice, the image of the king whom I presented, and struck me. You then struck me in my very seat of judgment, whereon, as an offender to your father, I gave my bold way to my authority and did commit you. That is, yes, I sent you to prison. If the deed were ill, if I did wrong, be you contented wearing now the garland, to have a son set your decrees at naught, to pluck down justice from your awful bench, to trip the course of law, and blunt the sword that guards the peace and safety of your person. Nay, more, to spurn at your most royal image, and mock your workings in a second body. If you think I was wrong, then go ahead. Do what you want to do, and what will happen? What happens if a president essentially says, I am above the law? What happens to our constitutional foundings? Out the window. That's what he's saying. Because by this time, is the king above the law? No, because we have Magna Carta. Question your royal thoughts, make the case yours. Be now the father and propose a son. That is, you stand in the place of your father and imagine you had a son like you. What would you do?
Which you kind of did in the previous play with Falstaff.
It's exactly what he did. And what did Falstaff say? Banish false? No, don't. And he says, I will. I do. And we turn a couple pages. And he does. Okay? King, you are right, Justice, and you weigh this well. Therefore still bear the balance and the sword, the balance of justice and the sword. And I do wish your honors may increase till you do live to see a son of mine offend you and obey you as I did. In other words, and you will be Chief Justice for a long time to come. And guess what? You're going to get to do to my son what you had to do to me. Why? Because he's saying, this is what sons do. So shall I live to speak my father's words. Happy am I that have a man so bold, that dares do justice on my proper son, and would not less happy having such a son that would deliver up his greatness so into the hands of justice. You did commit me, for which I do commit into your hand the unstained sword that you have used to bear, with this remembrance, that you use the same with the like bold, just, and impartial spirit as you have done against me. In other words, merit out justice how? What is justice supposed to be? Blind. What does that mean?
Impartial.
It's impartial. Supposed to be. As we all know, in our society, unfortunately, the wealthier you are, the less impartial it is. Okay? There is my hand. Let's shake on it, essentially. You shall be as a father to my youth. My voice shall sound as you do prompt mine ear, and I will stoop and humble my intents to your well-practiced, wise directions. He is saying the Lord Chief Justice will be what for him? A father figure. I will go to you for advice, just as I would have gone to my father if he were still alive. My father has gone wild into his grave, for in his tomb lie my affections. And with his spirit, sadly, I survive to mock the expectation of the world. What does the world expect of King Henry V? Not much. So he's going to mock those expectations, to frustrate prophecies, and to raise out rotten opinion. Who hath rent me down after my seeming. Seeming. His appearances. But his seeming has been caused by what? His own actions. He did it all intentionally. Why? So that there would be this rotten opinion, so that there would be these very low expectations. Why? Because then it's very easy to exceed expectations. The tide of blood in me hath proudly flowed in vanity till now. Till now means no more. Now doth it turn and ebb back to the sea, where it shall mingle with the state of floods and flow henceforth in formal majesty. I don't act according to my own desires, to my own whims anymore. Now call we our high court of parliament. Let us choose such limbs of noble counsel, that the great body of our state may go in equal rank with the best governed nation. That is, so that England may be on an equal footing with every other great nation. Are all the other great nations expecting this of England? No, they're not. Which is why at the beginning of Henry V, the Dauphin of France sends, as I said the other day, a casket with tennis balls. Okay, this is during the 100 Years' War, which isn't a constant period of war. It's battles and skirmishes and periods of peace, etc. And he's essentially saying, go play with your little balls there, Harry, because you're not man enough to get involved in France. And he goes, oh, I will return such a serve as France shall shake. And he goes and he has two major battles that he's victorious in, historically. Right? So, skip a bunch. Falstaff discovers, line 122, that the old king is dead. And he's thinking what? My time. I've got it made now. I've got an in with the king. His debts will be forgotten or paid. Okay? So, 5-5. Grooms come in as strewers of rushes. What are they doing? They're laying down like palm branches. Why? Because the king is getting ready to enter. This is like Palm Sunday. But it's the way it is every day for the king. Why? Because the king doesn't walk on common bare ground. The area is being lined. And they come in. Falstaff and pistol are there. Notice, trumpet sound. The king and his train pass over the stage. After them enter Falstaff, Shallow, Pistol, Bardolph, and the boy. Okay. And the king comes back in, so the king and his train go across the stage. Falstaff and the others come in behind. King goes off. King comes back on with his train. And Falstaff, God save thy grace, King Hal, my royal Hal. My? You don't, no, not my. The king doesn't own, is not owned by anybody. because my is a possessive pronoun. Pistol, the heavens thee guard and keep, most royal imp of fame. That's Pistol talking about how most royal imp, little diminutive spirit. God save thee, my sweet boy. My Lord Chief Justice, speak to that vain man. Notice Hal doesn't address him personally. He doesn't say, Falstaff, bite your tongue. Falstaff, shut your mouth. He says, minion, take care of this problem. And the Chief Justice goes to Falstaff. Have you your wits? Know you what 'tis you speak? He's saying, do you know what you're even saying? The implication is, do you know who you're talking to? My king, my Jove, I speak to thee, my heart. My heart. The thing that keeps me alive. The thing that keeps me going. I know thee not, old man. Notice, what's the tense? It's present tense. I know thee not. Now, fall to thy prayers. How ill white hairs becomes a fool and jester. I have long dreamt of such a kind of man, so serpent swelled, so old and so profane, but being awaked, I do despise my dream. Being awaked in my right mind. Everything that he did before in the past with Falstaff was but as a dream, a fantasy, a nightmare possibly. And Hal is saying, now I'm awake. I'm in my right mind. I'm rational. Make less thy body hence, and more thy grace. Leave gormandizing. What's gormandizing? Gluttony. In other words, get rid of this seven, or get rid of this deadly sin. Gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins. Gormandizing is eating and drinking to excess, as well as being fastidious about what you eat. Oh, I'm only going to eat this cut of beef. I'm only going to drink this kind of wine. I'm only going to eat this, etc. Know the grave doth gape for thee thrice wider than for other men. What's he saying? Lose some weight there, Falstaff. You're a fat old man. Reply not to me with a fool. He sees Falstaff start to open it, zip it. Presume not that I am the thing I was. Well, how is Falstaff supposed to know he's not the thing he was? Because they discussed it. They had Falstaff play the king and Hal play himself, and then they had Hal play the king and Falstaff play Hal. For God doth know, so shall the world perceive, that I have turned away my former self. Again, this is biblical image. This is the idea of reformation, killing the old Adam. So will I those that kept me company. That is, I will turn them away. Why? Because in order to now live a virtuous life, to live according to the new man, he can't hang around with the people who used to keep him, quote unquote, in sin. He can't be reformed and still going to the taverns and the whorehouses, etc. when thou dost hear, I am as I have been, then approach me, and then thou shalt be as thou wast, the tutor and the feeder of my rights. When word reaches you that the old Hal is back, then show up. What's he mean? Ain't gonna happen. That Hal is what? Dead, buried. Till then, I banish thee on pain of death, as I have done the rest of my misleaders, Bardolph, Peto, Pwans, Gadshill, etc., not to come near our person by 10 mile. So if he's at Windsor Castle, Falstaff cannot be in the city limits of Windsor. If he's at Westminster, Hal, Falstaff can't be anywhere in London, because it's not a 10-mile radius from him. For competence of life I will allow you. What does that mean? I'm going to give you a pension. I'm going to give you a living, not a job, income. I'm going to maintain you. Not, however, as a grossly fat old man. I'm going to give you enough to do what? To get by on. In other words, you are going to lose some weight on the amount I'm going to give you to live on. The lack of means enforce you not to evils. I'm doing this so that you don't turn to evil because you don't have any other way to subsist. And as we hear you do reform yourselves, notice yourselves. Who's he speaking to? It's not just Falstaff. It's Falstaff, Pistol, Shallow, Bardolph. It's all of them. As you do reform yourselves, we will, according to your strengths and qualities, what? Give you advancement. We will elevate you in the ranks. But I think advancement also means something else. I could be wrong. Allow you to get within 9 miles. And 8 miles, and 7 miles, and possibly even to come into the presence of our royal person. Be it your charge, my lord, to see performed the tenor of my word. Who's the my lord? The Lord Chief Justice, the guy sitting back there with a big old sword on his shoulder. Master Shallow, I owe you 1,000 pounds. Yeah, you do. He says, don't worry. The king will send for me in private. He just doesn't want to, do this publicly. Okay? 92, Chief Justice. Go carry Sir John Falstaff to the fleet. Take all his company along with him. The fleet? He's not saying bear him to the Navy.
Prison.
He's talking about the fleet prison, which you can still go by today. I mean, where it used to be. My lord, I cannot now speak. I will hear you soon. Take them away. Prince John. Hold on a second. Never mind. Prince John. I like this fair proceeding of the kings. Proceeding doesn't just mean meeting. He means walking. This movement of the kings. This procession of the kings. He hath intent his wanted followers shall all be very well provided for. But all are banished till their conversations appear more wise and modest to the world. He's taking care of them, but he will not see them until they what? Clean up their acts. And so they are, says Chief Justice. Prince John, king hath called his parliament. Okay? So, we end with an epilogue. How did we begin? With rumor. First, my fear, then my curtsy, last my speech. My fear is your displeasure. Audience, please don't not like the play. My curtsy is my duty, curtsying, honoring the audience, and my speech is to beg your pardons. If you look for a good speech now, you undo me. That is, you're not going to get one. For what I have to say is of mine own making, and what indeed I should say will, I doubt, prove mine own mind, but to the purpose and so to the venture. Be it known to you, as it is very well, I was lately here in the end of a displeasing play, to pray your patience for it, and to promise you a better. I meant, indeed, to pay you with this, which, if like an ill venture, it lost my place. It come unluckily home, I break, and you, my gentle creditors, lose. Here I promised you I would be, and here I commit my body to your mercies. Bait me some, and I will. If my tongue cannot entreat you to acquit me, will you command me to use my legs? That is, leave. Get off the stage. And yet, that were but light payment to dance out of your debt. But a good conscience will make any possible satisfaction. So, one more word. I beseech you. If you be not too much cloyed with fat meat, our humble author will continue the story with Sir John in it. That is, Shakespeare is telling us at the conclusion of this play with the epilogue that he already knows. Word has already reached his ear. More Falstaff, please. We got to have more Falstaff. He's a great character. Okay? And make you merry with fair Catherine of France, where, for anything I know, Falstaff shall die of a sweat, unless already be killed with your hard opinions. Now, he's just told us Falstaff will die in the next play, unless your opinions do him in before then. For Oldcastle died a martyr. Shakespeare is telling us there Falstaff is based on this guy named Sir John Oldcastle, okay? Which the Oldcastle family did not like the portrayal of Falstaff. Because, I mean, he was dissing one of theirs. Yeah. And this is not the man. In other words, what do you get at the beginning of every film that comes out? Or every book or every TV show?
Characters portrayed are fictitious and
Any resemblance to anybody living or dead is entirely blah, 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 blah. This isn't Oldcastle. Shakespeare is telling his audience. Oldcastle died a martyr. This is not the man. My tongue is weary, my legs are too. I'll bid you good night. And so I kneel before you, but indeed to pray for the queen. And I kind of think that the line there about the queen is because we know Queen Elizabeth favored Shakespeare. She attended the Globe. We know what was her actual box seat. They actually, today even, they have what are called the royal seats. I mean, they use them. You can buy tickets to sit there. They're not any more or any less. But should the queen come, that would be her box, kind of a thing. Okay? All right, we're not doing Henry V. I am going to write an exam for the history place, and I might make it so that if you want to refer to Henry V, by all means, you may, but it won't require reading Henry V. I would recommend, if you've never read Henry V, to go ahead and read it. And more importantly, almost more importantly, watch the Kenneth Branagh version. Done in 1983, I think it was 83, when he was 21, 23, I mean, he was really young, okay? Starring himself as Henry V, which was appropriate. It's about the right age, because Henry was pretty young the scenes that plague her. Had his then wife play Catherine of France. Emma Thompson played Catherine of France. But I still think it's the best Henry V ever. I mean, it far outshines Laurence Olivier's. Laurence Olivier's boring. I mean, it's a boring Henry V. This Henry V is like, and it's much, much better than the Hollow Crown version. I mean, Branagh does King Henry V much, much better than does Tom Hiddleston. And the St. Crispin's Day speech, I mean, you gotta be dead for that thing to not rouse you, because it is just fantastic.
Is Henry V is the title of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I want to say, I'm pretty sure there is a bootleg version available online that you can find. It used to be on YouTube, but I don't remember who owns the rights to it. NBC, Universal, something like that. They've taken all the Shakespeare stuff off that used to be online. When I first taught this course, I was able to show entire plays, all directly from YouTube. They're all gone. Now you can get clips. In the St. Crispin's Day speech is a clip that is available. So instead we're going to jump to, now, 15 minutes we have left. I'd hope we'd have more time than that. Julius Caesar. Caesar is presented with the tragedies in the first folio. But it's not quite clear that it is an actual tragedy. It's the life, the title of the play is something like The Life and Death of, in the table of contents of the first folio, it's The Life and Death of Julius Caesar. You get to the title page of it in the first folio, and it's The Tragedy of Julius Caesar. So, which is it? You know? And in Caesar, well, let me back up for a moment. With the tragedy, if the tragedy is named after a person, what does that usually tell you?
Tragic hero.
They're the tragic hero, they're the protagonist. Pro, first, agonist, sufferer, or protos, first, agonist, sufferer, the chief sufferer. Bevington, in his introduction, says, you don't have a single protagonist in this play. Just as I would argue, in the great Sophoclean play, Antigone, you don't have a single protagonist. Yeah, Antigone dies. Doesn't mean she's the chief sufferer. I mean, when I teach that play, I actually argue she's not the protagonist. Her uncle, Creon, is the protagonist. He's the one who suffers the most in that play. Okay? So, in this play, who's the chief sufferer? Is it the guy who dies, Caesar? Or is it Brutus? Because Brutus is brought in, and Brutus has got to do what? Louder? Betray his friend. How easy is that? I mean, Caesar's got to die. Yeah, it really sucks for him. But it's not that hard to die. We all do. You know, they're even going to say, Brutus is even going to say, you know, I'm actually helping Caesar out here. Because what happens to somebody who's 40 and then lives to be 60? I think it is Cassius says, well, it gives him 20 years to worry about death. Brutus is kind of like, yeah, that's the way to look at it. We're actually helping Caesar. We're keeping him from worrying about death for 20 years. We're just bringing that forward for him. That's a good way of looking at it. Okay? So you've got these two people who suffer greatly. Okay? And I want to skip the rest of the introduction and jump to the dramatis personae. So you got Julius Caesar. You have Calpurnia, Caesar's wife. Mark Antony, Octavius Caesar, and Lepidus. Or Lepidus, as sometimes it's pronounced. Antony, Octavius Caesar, and Lepidus are the triumvirs after Caesar's death. Okay? There were triumvirs before Caesar's death. Julius Caesar, Pompey the Great, okay, and a guy named Crassus. They were the three who kind of ruled Rome together until Caesar overruled the other two. He overcame the other two and became Caesar. Okay, Tsar. That's where the Russians get the word Tsar from. Became, as we hear discussed here, king, emperor. All right? So after Caesar dies, we're going to see a new triumvirate. The only problem is, as Gandalf discusses with Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, only one finger can wear the ring of power at once. You have three people equally sharing power. What's going to happen? Yeah, one's going to take the power from the others. Okay? This is an idea. It goes way back in time, and it goes all the way forward to, Harry Potter, the Tales of Beedle the Bard and the Three Brothers kind of a thing. It's also there in Canterbury Tales in the Partner's Tale. Okay? So we open with Morolus and others talking, and they're talking about Caesar coming in, and there's going to be a holiday because of his great triumph. Line 31. The cobbler says, "Sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph." Why rejoice? What conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome to grace and captive bonds, his chariot wheels? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome. Knew you not Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yea, to chimney tops. Your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day with patient expectation. Expectation for what? To see the great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. And when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made a universal shout that Tiber trembled underneath her banks to hear the replication of your sounds made in her concave shores? What is he getting at? Louder?
Didn't you all love Pompey?
Didn't you all love Pompey? Oh, the people are fickle. You would climb onto the rooftops to get a glimpse of Pompey. Well, what victory is Caesar coming in to celebrate? The defeat of Pompey. And now everybody's, yay, Caesar! Okay. So, Flavius and Morolus keep talking. And Flavius says, 72, these growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wing will make him fly an ordinary pitch. In other words, we are going to pluck some of the feathers from Caesar's wing. Why? Because he's flying like this. He's ascending. We're going to make him do what? We're going to make him fly closer to us. We're not going to let him ascend. We're not going to make as Augustus did, Octavius, become a god. It's what the Caesar Augustus, that's what the Augustus part means. Caesar, the august one. Caesar, the god. Julius Caesar didn't consider himself a god. And he got killed. Caesar Augustus considered himself a god. Can't kill a god. Right? So, who else would soar above the few of men and keep us all in servile fearfulness? If we don't clip his wings, he will become what? A tyrant. A tyrant. Okay? So Caesar comes in, and I keep speaking of this, if you've never seen it, rent the film, Friends and Romans. It is hilarious. It is a hilarious, it's not really a retelling of Julius Caesar, but it is, and I'll give you the very brief summary. It is a film about a production of Julius Caesar. A production of Julius Caesar by a bunch of actors in New York who play mobsters in mob films. And I'm not kidding, every one of the actors who is going to put on the play Julius Caesar is a guy you have seen in a mob film. Like Goodfellas. Joe Pesci's not in it. De Niro's talked about, but he's not in it. Okay, guys that are in, various of the Godfather films, and in the film they're playing on their backup stand-in roles as mobsters. Okay, one of the funny things about the show is some people start to think they really are mobsters because they play mobsters in films, and they kind of every now and then dress as mobsters. But one of the guys, the central character, he delivers produce for a living. And every now and then, he gets a stand-in role as a mobster in a De Niro film. And because of that, he says, Goodfellas bought this couch. Godfather 3 bought the car. So-and-so bought your braces, etc. Okay? They actually do put on, partially, Julius Caesar, and the climax of the film is Mark Antony's funeral oration, which will bring you to tears. It is so well done. But this film will have you laughing. It'll have you rolling on the floor. Parts of it are so funny. If you're familiar with Julius Caesar. Okay, so Caesar and Calpurnia and Casca come in, and the soothsayer, beware today the Ides of March. Caesar, who is that? Brutus, the soothsayer bids you beware the Ides of March. Set him before me, let me see him. What was that you said? Speak again, beware the Ides of March. He's a dreamer, let us leave him. Notice, so Caesar's making this great procession, and he stops. What did he say? Beware the Ides of March. Now, when this is occurring right here, according to the footnote, I think it is, this occurred around February 15th, a month before the Ides of March. So he's got a lot of time to prepare, okay? But Caesar doesn't listen to it. So, Caesar, etc. leave, and we are left with Manent means remain, Brutus and Cassius. So they talk. Cassius, 33. I have not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I was wont to have. In other words, you used to look nicer on me. Brutus, be not deceived. If I have veiled my look, I turn the trouble of my countenance merely upon myself. Vexed I am of late with passions of some difference, etc., etc. What's he getting at? I'm troubled. Why? Because of what is happening in Rome. So, Cassius says, you need to look at yourself with the eyes of Rome. Because the people of Rome look at you, and they look to you for help and such. 58. I have heard were many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus and groaning underneath this age's yoke, have wished that noble Brutus had his eyes. Into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius, that you would have me seek into myself for that which is not in me? What is that which you see in myself which is not in me? What's Brutus talking about? Nope. I don't want rule. Cassius is saying, there are people in Rome who would have you as ruler. He's going, not me. So Cassius says, I, line 68, and we'll probably stop with this, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of. We'll talk again, and I will tell you some things that you're not aware of about yourself. He says, okay, we'll talk later. So we'll pick up there. I'll probably post the exam. I don't know, it'll be today or tomorrow, and it'll be due. The earliest it would be due would be next Thursday, probably the Tuesday after that.